Welcome back to the Sports Fix. It's time to talk all things A-leagues, and I'm delighted to have Ben Homer, the Network 10 and Paramount Plus commentator, joining me. Ben, how you doing?
Hey, Ellis, great to be on.
Great call last night. You were calling the Jets versus Wellington game, and we'll talk about that as well as talking about the other two fixtures that occurred last night too. But before we get to that, Ben, we'll go straight to a grab from your call last night in what was Wellington's winner over the Jets. Here it is, folks.
Lewis. It's going to sit up on the damp pitch for Sutton, who's bending it to David Ball. That is a massive goal in the context of Wellington Phoenix's season. Have they snatched all 3 points late on against Newcastle?
There was David Ball's winner, and a great game too, Ben. Rule, I guess, what we would call a end-to-end spectacle. Before we get to talking about Wellington, and of course we do need to give them plenty of credit for the performance, I want to first just ask you about Arthur Papas. Now, I guess from what I can sort of conjure up here, I liken what's happening with the Jets under Papas to what was happening with Ange Postecoglou at Brisbane Roar all the way back in 2009, where there were patches of progress and some good football being played, but not quite the results on the other end. Now, we know Arthur Papas, of course, was mentored by Ange Postecoglou. Do you think it's a reasonable comparison for me to make there, Ben?
Yeah, I think the style is one that a lot of players haven't played before in Australia. And I think that that's taking a bit of getting used to for the Newcastle Jets. I also think one of the issues for them this year is just the amount of matches that they're going to have to play back to back to back, 2 a week until the end of the season. I think that is going to have an impact just on their fatigue levels, because you see the intensity they play with the movement, with the ball, without it. I think it's going to be difficult to judge Papas just on this season alone, and I know that might be hard to cop to Jets fans who are frustrated at the moment with the results, but I do think it is so difficult, because you look at how the Jets started the season. They had that loss to the Mariners, a couple of draws, and then they beat Wellington 4-0 in their fourth match of the season, and things looked to be moving in the right direction. Each week they were improving, and then all of a sudden they played Macarthur the next week, who went down to 10 men. They lost that 2-1, and then they, of course, had the COVID break for more than a month, and that really stilted their progress. And then, of course, they've come back onto the park, and since then they've been up and down, wins, losses, draws. They've had everything, so they haven't been able to win back-to-back matches, and I think that is the real difficult part for the Jets at the moment, is they just cannot get any consistency, and I wonder whether they will get consistency just with the way they play and the amount of matches they're going to have to play with that. So that'll be something to watch over the next month and a bit.
And just on Wellington, deserved winners last night, but they had to do it the hard way. Perhaps unlucky to have been made to go through that with a certain incident occurring there, which did not go in Ufuk Tale's favour. But Wellington, you'd have to agree, were worthy winners on the occasion, Ben?
Yeah, it's funny. It's one of those ones where if you looked at the stats, the Jets had 31 shots, I think, to Wellington's 10 maybe, and you'd say, yeah, well, Jets are a bit unlucky. Their XG was also higher than Wellington. But to be honest, it just felt like Wellington, across the course of the night, were the better side. They just soaked up the pressure from Newcastle. They counter-attacked with speed, and I really loved the tactical decision from Ufuk Talay to bring Ben Waine into the side. I understand that in the match on the weekend against Melbourne City, he was going to bring in Ben Old to replace Reno Piscopo in the midfield. So a like-for-like change, and then up front it would have been Sotirio and Ball. But last night what he did was he said, we're going to put Waine and play him alongside Josh Sotirio up front, drop David Ball back into the midfield 4. Really smart decision, because you see the speed that Ben Waine offers up there. Obviously grabbed a goal. Josh Sotirio grabbed a goal as well from the penalty spot, and that was created by his speed. So really smart tactical decisions from Ufuk Talay. We shouldn't be surprised about that, because he consistently shows that as Wellington Phoenix boss. He's one of the most impressive managers in the league. And this year I've absolutely loved watching Wellington, especially of late. I just love their style of play. And they're prepared to let the other team have possession, but then sting them when they give away the ball. And that's what they did to Newcastle last night. And then David Ball, he's grabbed goals in the last couple of matches, but he was doing so much more for Wellington, even though he wasn't scoring. He's an absolute workhorse, as Daniel Georgievski said in the call last night. He's such an impressive player, and just that Wellington unit now with Scott Wooten brought in centre-back. They conceded a couple last night, but in their last 5 games, I think they've conceded 4 goals. They had the worst defence sort of before that stretch of games. So they're going from strength to strength. And just to finish off on Ufuk Talay, what about the recruitment? Wooten, I mentioned, Sandoval as well, the Mexican, just been so bright for the Knicks. He doesn't get many decisions wrong on the recruitment front, the Wellington boss.
No, he most certainly does not. It's almost like we've forgotten about Ulysses De Vere and the hole that he was seemingly supposed to have left in that Wellington side. Ben, just glossing over the results last night, there were 3 games, of course. You called that Jets and Wellington game, but Melbourne City, they got up over Macarthur 3-1. We also had a 1-1 draw between the Mariners and Melbourne Victory. So just looking at the table, it's interesting to note that Wellington, they've got so many games in hand and they are sat in such a good position right now. Certainly not looking over their shoulder, that's for sure. So how do you see this season unfolding? Because really the only standouts who have been consistent the whole way through, you'd have to say, are Melbourne City and Western United. And of course we know that virtually no one's talking about Western United. So this could be a very interesting finish to the season.
Yeah, important result for City last night, just because they only conceded the 1 goal. So often this year they've just been giving up goals at will. Obviously Tom Glover dropped to the Flash last night, so that was a big move from Paddy Castorbo. But that is what Melbourne City have to tidy up if they are to challenge for the premiership. And we know that Western United have a couple of games in hand, so they theoretically could go 6 points clear of City over the back end of the season. Obviously, they have to win those 2, but that will be an interesting one to keep an eye on. I think City obviously can still win it in terms of the premiership, but they just have to stop leaking goals. So I really feel like it's a race in 2 for that premiership. I know Wellington have a number of games in hand. Whether they can win all of those and get back towards the top, I think it will still be too difficult an ask, but I definitely think Wellington are a chance to finish in sort of the top 4 sides, especially if they continue this form. We saw last year they started slow and then they got their wheels in motion and absolutely ran home like a steam train and just missed the finals. This year they've got their run together a whole lot earlier, so I think that they're just going to keep rolling. And I can't see Wellington dropping form because they've got Sandoval there, they've got Scott Wooten just tidying up that back line. The only issue for them is the fact that they've got a number of players missing over the coming weeks on All Whites duty, playing in that OSC Nations Cup, the World Cup qualifiers. So that's the real issue for Wellington. In terms of other sides, so probably the teams that I'd expect to make the 6 at the moment, you're going City, Western United, Melbourne Victory is certainly locked in, and Wellington. Now, Adelaide, that's an interesting one. They've got a number of matches played over the rest of the sides in the competition. Can they hang on? That's going to be a big question. I think they probably will. And then you've maybe got 1 spot left for the likes of Macarthur, who have been up and down. Who knows what Macarthur can dish up? Sydney, the Mariners, the Jets, Western Sydney. I think any of those sides can make it. Perth or Brisbane, probably not for mine. But any of those 4 sides just outside the top 6, I think, can make it on their day. So what a competition we've got this year. It's so difficult to pick how it'll pan out over the coming months.
Couldn't agree more. Speaking to Ben Homer, the A-leagues commentator on Paramount Plus and Network 10. Now, Ben, there's plenty of people talking up your performance as a young commentator. I've heard the tagline, next Simon Hill, but of course you're still one of his colleagues for now, so we'll leave that aside. But I just want to ask you what it's been like, your plight so far. You've moved across to the new A-leagues broadcaster with the rest of the current commentary team, so how are you enjoying it?
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I think the best part of the job is to be able to work in sport and get paid for it, get paid to watch sport. It's a pretty good gig. So I'm absolutely loving it. And the football this year has been absolutely fantastic. What I'm looking forward to is hopefully we get some more fans in the stands over the back end of the season. Obviously it's been rough at the moment, especially in New South Wales with the wet weather. Obviously COVID across the country as well. So I just hope over the coming months as we build up to finals we can get some big crowds in the grounds, because it makes it so much more enjoyable. being able to commentate a game with a big crowd, and you really can get behind that. So that's what I'm looking forward to over the back end of this season.
Ben Homer, the A-leagues commentator on Network 10 and Paramount Plus. It's been great having you on the Sports Fix. We look forward to potentially checking in with you again sometime, but enjoy all the football action that's coming our way, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Thanks, Ellis. Absolute pleasure. Cheers.
Coming up on the other side of this, it'll be Ricky and Courtney rounding out the Sports Fix hour here on Flow FM. Do not go anywhere. More to come right after